Content writing versus copywriting. Same thing or not? Content marketing is more than just writing.
Okay, now we're going to listen a few podcasts about marketing. How about that?
And your kids are like, yay!
Content that's, I would say, more meaningful and more for the humans rather than just robots. You should be writing content the way you speak. So that's one of the shady areas of content marketing.
Nobody reads articles anymore.
Areas where you should be brave with your budget. You read the information and you know, okay, this product is not for me.
Operation Automation is ready to launch. Prepare to optimize your business in 3, 2, 1, go!
Hi there, it's Irek. Welcome to another episode of the podcast for marketers. This one's really special to us because it's about the topic we both are particularly close to, content marketing, and if there's a place for automation there.
Today we're joined by Michal, Head of Content and Partnerships. With more than 10 years of experience in online marketing, Michal has written over 100 articles, ebooks, courses, and hosted tons of webinars, spreading the love to automation. As you could have guessed from the episode title, we'll be talking about Michal's experience with automating content marketing, the role of technology in the future of content creation, and how content may be the bridge between a brand and its audience. Let's get started. And just before we start with the interview, I wanted to emphasize that content is a part of marketing that is important all the time, but it becomes particularly important during the slow season because this is the time when you can really get crazy creative with it. What do you think, Irek?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, as a content person, I believe that you should always focus on content. But, you know, the thing is that it's about the information your audience needs to hear in order to make the right choice. It's about the quality of ideas. So definitely you're right. I totally agree with you that you could use the slow season just to figure out what you are about and what you want to say so that actually people can make the right choices.
Exactly. And thank you so much for bringing it up. I'm not sure if we emphasized it enough during the interview, but yeah, that is the main purpose of content, is to make what you do about your target audience, about your end user, their needs, their problems, their interests. That what in the end tells a good content strategy apart from a mediocre one, as well as good optimization and data analysis, which is definitely not one of my strongest suits, but that is something that Michal, our guest, totally excels in. So I'm very excited to listen once again about his perspective on data optimized content.
Yep, let's dive in.
Hi, Michal.
Hi, Irek.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're going to be talking about content marketing, my personally favorite topic. But before we jump into content marketing,
we have this one question that we ask every single person on the podcast. So the first one is, what processes in life do you wish you could automate?
That's a tricky question.
You actually are at fault for us having this question because I sent you the very first draft of questions and you said that would be an amazing question to ask people.
Okay, so so cool, mate.
So I know the wrong answer to this question would be raising your kids. But truth be told, definitely syncing my plan for the day for the meals with my shopping cart or with buying list when I go to the shop. And I know that this is possible, and I just haven't gone around this.
I think it exists for the fridges.
Yeah. So like if I have a smart fridge one day, hopefully that can happen. Because
how does it work exactly? That you actually you decide on what meals you're going to cook in the week, and the fridge informs you like
what you're missing and what's going out of date.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's something. If it's not that, we could invent it. But definitely, like whenever my wife and I chat about what we have to cook, I hate the fact that I have to go first through like the 20 minutes of searching whether we have rice or whatever else.
Yeah.
And then going to the shop, finding those things, and then the last moment I identified that there's this one missing piece, like the spice that you need for the whole thing.
Obviously, there is like a story of my life.
But it's also interesting because there are things like rice that you don't keep in your fridge. So how would it know?
Okay.
So I've heard that like this, Thermomix, these like smart cooking devices, they have an app. So apparently when you pick a recipe, it tells you like which items you should buy. So it doesn't sync with your drawer or like,
But it could.
It could. That's,
But then
2.0.
probably you need quite a lot of equipment, right? Because as you said, it's not only about the fridge, it's like your rice container.
You need to have smart kitchen, and that's it. Just automated house.
Yeah, and yet I want to turn off, all my devices when I go back home. So I'm not sure that's the right thing.
So let's come back to automating your kids.
That's much easier.
Yeah, I never said that, by the way.
Honey, if you listen to my podcast.
Cool.
Okay, so if we want to talk more seriously, then my personally favorite question, and it is personal because I get it a lot from my parents, from my friends who are not in marketing, from people in the street. They sometimes come and stop me and ask me, how is content marketing different from copywriting? No, nobody actually stops me, but...
So that's an interesting one. So sometimes there are differences. Sometimes I think there's a big overlap. And at the same time, I think someone could be a great copywriter and a bad content marketer, and someone could be a great content marketer but a bad copywriter. So I think there's an overlap. Yes, you create content, you often write content, but if you're a content marketer, you definitely have some specific goals in mind, usually some KPIs behind what you have to write. And if you're writing for SEO, as most of the content writers these days, you have some structures that you have to follow. You do some research, not only about like what's been written before, but what formats, for example, Google prefers, whether you should be writing a listicle or whether you should be writing something else, or maybe you should be actually creating a YouTube video instead of writing content, because top results actually bring you videos instead of written content. So I would say that's the main difference. But obviously, I can imagine that there are plenty of content writers copywriters that already do this. So I would say we had this transition in our team some time ago. By some time, I mean like 6 or 7 years ago, probably, that we were writing content just based on the gut feeling. We knew the audience and we were thinking like, oh yeah, this is definitely something they would like to learn about. But we weren't actually checking how people search the information. So for example, I remember one article that wrote, and I wanted to have some clever title, and it was like the adventures of list segmentation or whatever. And I remember my manager back then told me like, truth be told, no one searches for it this way, or no one is interested in your adventures of this part. And I tried to make many remarks to Lord of the Rings and other stuff, and I'm like, yeah, now that you know SEO, you know all the tools that you have to your disposal, you know that exactly people aren't searching this way. It doesn't mean you can't use these things, but they help you steer your writing toward something more, I'll say, structured.
And we've also come a very long way, like I think from 6 years ago, into the role of SEO in the entire content creation process. But before we move to that, I want to take it a step further and say, how about then content writing versus copywriting? Same thing or not?
Content writing. So I would say content marketing in general is not only just a creation of content, and I would say content writing is part of it, but distributing that content, analyzing, reporting on it, identifying what kind of content needs to be created, and identify what type of content throughout the whole, I would say, customer journey, but throughout all your departments that needs to be created. Because even within our own organization, you have product content, you have UX content, in-app communication, then you have sales collateral, and just normal, I would say, regular content that we publish on our blog and stuff, which in many organizations actually is referred to content marketing. When they are referring to content marketing, they are just talking about producing blog articles that generate traffic.
That's true. I like your perspective, and thank you for saying that content marketing is more than just writing. And I would add from myself probably that it's also very important to think of content as an important part of the marketing strategy. That's what this episode in many ways is going to be about. And how video scripts, podcasts, if you make company ones, UX copy on your ad banners, like all these things are content. And I think it's really great when people recognize it. Recognize it as this coherent, very comprehensive process rather than just, but everybody can write a few words.
Yeah. Throughout our journey, career journey, I would say I've met many people that thought they can write content, many people that just admitted they don't like and they cannot write content. To be honest, I've never considered myself as a content writer. And even back at school, I struggled to write anything, even my thesis back at university. I think that was 4,000 words long, and it took me months to create that. And now 4,000...
Everybody struggled with the thesis.
Yeah, now... If you really double down on writing an article that was, well researched, you could write it in probably a day or two if it was 4,000 words long. Yeah. I know people that could write it in hours, but I'm not one of those people. So yeah, it's definitely different, and it takes experience to also recognize that not everything can be measured. Because content can attract your new customers, it can engage existing users and educate them, help you keep them using your platform more often, logging into your platform more often. So you have to understand that not all of those things will be measured the same way, and that content can just come in many formats, like this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Which actually I wanted to ask you about the role of content in business, because very often, people think okay, content. So it means that you're writing a blog, right? But this, there might be this other perspective. What is the role of content in business?
Yeah, I imagine that, as I mentioned before, some content marketing departments focus only on attracting new visitors to their website, and all they're measured on is traffic and potentially signups. Which is completely fine. It helps you focus on certain area of content, but content comes in many forms. And even in our organization, you will have webinars, you will have workshops that you do to new users and that you do to existing users that want to learn about the platform. You have case studies with customers that already use the platform and have achieved success. You have interviews, you have podcasts, or just content that can help your salespeople win over some impressive deals because they want some battle cards to use when comparing your tool against the competitors. So I would say, depending on the organization, it can have many different goals and meaning. I would say in general, it should help you attract more users, gain more eyeballs to your website, to your content. It should help you educate people on the topic that you're expert in, that you're selling, and help you convert those people either from your website to a list, either email list or a user. And then hopefully once they're also within your list, you can nurture them through email communication and other formats or other channels to become paying users or paying members if it's a membership thing.
No, that's all very good, very valid. So to pay a little bit of an homage to our sprint topic, how does slow season treat content marketers? Is there such a thing as slow season in content for you?
I would say yes, there is slow season, but I treat it as something that gives us a bit of a breathing space. So especially after Christmas, after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, there is this moment, especially back here where people are just taking weeks off, and it's harder to push projects with your teams. This is one of the slowest seasons, and you have also summer vacation when it's slightly slower. On one way, it stops you because it's harder to, for example, organize meetings, organize webinars with partners, to do podcasts with people when they're traveling, spending time with their family. So yes, there's a slow season, and people probably are not buying as often your services, because who is researching SaaS platforms or SaaS solutions during a summer break? Probably they're focused on other things. So I would say, yes, there is slow season, and I treat it as something that is, I would say, a blessing, because it helps you take a few steps back, analyze what you've published so far, what you've produced, how it's performing, what you can do in the future that can work better. So, for example, now we're talking about summer, but in 2 or 3 months we have the back to school campaigns. We have Halloween. We have Christmas coming up. I know it's months ahead, but each year these things are actually happening even sooner.
Yes.
In the US, as far as I'm concerned, even early August, back to school often starts. So you have to produce that content, come up with it, and actually content indexation, that takes time. If you have a website that doesn't have a huge domain authority or just isn't known to Google just as much, it's going to take time before it's going to appear in the Google search results. So just take this time, take advantage of it, use the fact that people are not probably meeting and coming to your webinars, and just come up with better plans for the next months.
Great. So what's your professional forecast? This podcast is probably going to go live in late July, early August. Are we putting ourselves in danger by doing that?
Actually, I haven't thought about that when we were chatting about this podcast, but I think it might be slightly slower season for us. So getting this published might get different results from us than if we published it in September. But at the same time, people will be more busy in September and moving forward. So they'll have many more things to focus on, probably less time to educate themselves, to listen up, to watch their favorite shows. So I would say that this is not a bad moment. It's actually a good opportunity to look at my own, let's say, personal behavior and habits. Yeah. I've recently had more time to listen to podcasts. It got me more motivated to go outside to listen to business-related and non-business-related things like this podcast.
I think that also brings up this very important topic, and I don't know if you guys will agree with me, that the format of the content is crucial, because probably putting out a huge downloadable with a lot of technical information in July would be very poorly thought through strategy. But something like a podcast, especially like a chill one, the one which kind of encourages people to just think about new concepts. I'm not speaking about this one, but basically the concept the concept of podcast. It can be one of the best periods of time to be released, because people are more open, as you've mentioned, towards just spending their time doing something different. And this is a nice change of pace. Instead of sitting in front of the screen, you can listen to it in your car when you're driving with your family, if your family is a big marketing fan.
Exactly. I just thought about that. Like, okay, now we're going to listen to a few podcasts about marketing. How about that?
And your kids are like, yay!
That probably wouldn't work for my family, I'm afraid. But yeah, I definitely agree with you here. And it's interesting because we would probably have to think about how we measure success. And if we produce a massive report, a massive downloadable, yes, maybe people would download it still like in July or August, but maybe they wouldn't consume that content right away. They would download it for the future themselves. Like after I come back from a vacation, I will probably read it and use it, in my work.
We all know what happens to those kind of reports.
We know exactly. So looking at how you can consume this kind of content, I definitely agree that with podcasts and videos, you can listen it while you're on the go, whether it's in your car, whether you're walking with a stroller, or if you're running in a forest. I personally do that. I don't know if everyone else does that.
Yeah, I do that. Whenever I walk somewhere, I'll put on a podcast. So
yeah, so
Same here.
If anyone will reach ourselves, via this podcast.
We have 3 listeners. Yay!
It's cool. Could start with that. I wanted to go back to, let's say, the main idea behind the series, like automation. So, what about the role of automation in content? What is your perspective on that?
Yeah, so I guess more and more things can be automated these days. And I know we had a tryout with in our own department of using, for example, AI tools to create content for us.
Oh, I do want to talk about that.
Yeah, that was a quick test and it failed. So end of the episode. But
directed by Robert.
Exactly. That was quick. It didn't work out for us. I do believe in tools that can help you with creating content, for example, at scale like this. But probably it's not the right time for us. And because looking at the quality that we're looking at least, because I know that there are many more tools these days that can help you create that content and localize that content automatically and publish it on many pages. But that's not something that we wanted to go for. We actually prefer to create content that's I would say more meaningful and more for the humans rather than just robots.
Do you believe that nowadays you can actually find a good AI tool? Now, we're not talking about a distant future, but right now.
Based on my brief analysis, for short content, for ads, for headlines, for subject lines, titles, etc., yes. For writing longer articles, I don't think so. I think it would be just, mixing words from different articles that are appearing on the website or on Google. So I don't think that would be beneficial to the readers. Though, if, for example, that was in a different language than English, I probably wouldn't know better. So, it could answer my main question, help me, for example, navigate if I was in a foreign country. But I think local people would say, no, this is not proper Spanish or proper Italian.
Just to clarify, because I think that, for the people who haven't tried it yet, what made you, because, we tested the tool. So actually, what were the results and, what is the outcome? If you use this AI tool for content creation, so what can you expect? And actually, what was the reason that we actually, decided not to go with it?
To be honest, I think it's slightly similar to working with freelancers that, especially if you give them good information about what you want to achieve, and they write on behalf of you. And the same happened with AI tool. It's you told it, you gave it some ingredients what it should write about, and then it's no, that's not what I mean. That's not my style. I don't like it. I don't like this paragraph. And you kept mixing it and fixing it, and I got frustrated working with this kind of content. So I felt to be honest, I would feel more relaxed and more confident with that content if I wrote it from scratch, rather than, providing a sentence and then waiting, for the results, saying let's see what AI thinks about this. And sometimes just the content didn't make that much sense. The reason why it failed, I think it just caused us more frustration, especially given that we wanted to go for quality over quantity. And just, we can consider it as a test, that it's interesting technology that can be used for many things. But at the moment when we're focusing on long form content, that is, created for the robots and for the readers mostly, then, AI tools, not just yet, but I would like to be proved wrong. So feel free to reach out to me after this podcast.
Because what I observed is you get this piece of content that is SEO optimized. So you have paragraphs, and those paragraphs are filled with the right keywords, but still there is no idea behind it, the kind of a proper, a human idea that, you have a certain goal, as you mentioned, that, for example, the business goal of content is very important, right? But here is you have this the words that semantically are correct, and but still the reason behind this piece of content is not that clear, right?
Yeah. And you often hear that you should be writing content the way you speak, and that's impossible if you use an AI tool. It's definitely not if you're at university. That's not how you're supposed to write. But if you want your content to be approachable and reflect what kind of a person you are, how you think about things, it is harder than if you're using AI tools.
Cool.
I think it's also very important to pay attention to the visual aspects of content. So all the headers, all the styling, such as italics or bolded text, it all really matters for the reader, hopefully, or I'm spending a lot of time on the wrong thing.
No, I mean, definitely just when you scan through it, it just helps you navigate through that. I believe that especially now, people don't actually... Okay, I have no idea what other people do, but in my case, it's I take a look and I try to spot those particular pieces that I'm interested in. I very rarely read the whole article.
And I think that's the common thing, which is also makes a really good question to you as the content expert who does content for a living. Like, it's a very common opinion that nobody reads articles anymore. You are searching for some specific information to support some specific claim. You find it. Goodbye. So what do we as writers are here for?
Yeah, that's something we had to battle many times. And luckily, we have data that proves otherwise. That in many ways, or in many situations where you create good content, people will read through it. They will spend time on your website. You can use tools to track how much people are scrolling. So you know these things, but at the same time, it is true that people they want quick answers these days. We're impatient, so rather than going all in on your intro and telling your life story before you jump to the main part of the article, sometimes you can create an introduction that is literally one sentence, and you can just jump right into the main topic of your article. So whenever, for example, you're writing an article about top 10 tools for something, you could just literally say, like, we've reviewed top 10 tools using this and that and this, and go ahead and look at these tools. You don't have to tell people, like, what is a tool? How does it work? And why are people looking for tools, etc.
Can you do that?
Yeah, I know, with SEO content changing also, I think we'll see in the future that articles will be changing. But I do believe that we have to look at different content formats. We're talking about people now watching videos instead of reading the whole articles. We know people actually listen to more podcasts than read articles. That's my case, for example. I have time maybe for 1 or 2 in-depth articles per day, and I have a huge list of articles and tabs closed in my one tab thingy that I will probably in the future close, because I will probably not find time to read them. So we have to cater to many people of different kinds. And one of the things actually that we've tested on our own blog and are testing now is narrating our articles, and that's another format. It's different from podcast because this is literally someone reading out loud the article, making some tiny changes so that it's not referring to images or suggest that someone visits the page to see the article, but it's another way to look at content.
Could you share maybe some metrics? Like, it doesn't have to be numbers specifically, but maybe some percentages of, do we know how many people actually use the narration tool?
Yeah, so on our website, we have, I think, roughly 20 or 30 articles that were narrated. So it's not a big number just yet, but from what we see, about 7 or 8% people click on the tool with the narration. And depending on the article, we will have, it can be the average length of reading or listening to that could be about several minutes. It could be around 10 minutes, but it depends on the article. And at the same time, now we have to think about the people that chose to click on that. Are these people that would have read otherwise, or will they actually have left your website otherwise? So are these 4 minutes on average, let's say? Is this a good result? Is this something worth because they actually would have just left? Or is this something like, the article is 20 minutes long, why did they leave after 4 minutes? Then it's a failure. So that's something we have to still answer ourselves by looking at Google Analytics reports as well. The average time on page or average time on session, it's usually not all that long. People often just come here for the answer. They got the answer and they leave. So maybe it's not a bad result after all.
And do you think that it's better to stick to narration where a person is basically just reading the text, the same text the person would otherwise see? So here we're talking about accessibility, for example. Or would it be a better approach to modify the article a little bit? Because as I was talking about visual perception of the text, here you would expect an audio perception, which is entirely different. What's your opinion?
Yeah, so I know that the tool we're working with, they have their own methodology to actually narrate the articles in a way that it makes sense. It's not just someone reading out loud. So they are definitely changing the articles a bit to make sure that it reflects the way people listen to these things. And that's based on their experience, based on actually their education as well. So they know how these things should be narrated. And definitely, I believe that not all articles should be narrated. some articles are meant to show you exactly what to achieve.
Yes, for sure.
They are supposed to make you click through something and log into something, and listening that just out loud probably wouldn't work unless we have, a situation where someone wants to click through but listen while they do it rather than read through it. So I guess it depends at this moment.
My favorite answer.
Yeah, but it's going back to the goals, right? This is the kind of like content perspective where you actually first think, okay, what is the reason behind this?
But we started off with, automating content, and there are many other ways you can automate, processes in content marketing. So when it comes to automating stuff in content marketing or processes, one of the things that you can automate as well is reporting. And I think many content marketers are already doing this. So they can track conversions and engagement using tools like Google Analytics and Google Data Studio, so that they don't have to each time dig into the individual content pieces, but they can aggregate these things. They can get those reports delivered to them by email, or just go into a live Google Data Studio, for example, report to see how things are performing. One of the things, for example, that we're doing is also connecting our email signups with Slack, so that every time someone signs up to a content list, we see a report that X person just joined your list. So we can see right away that someone with a, for example, particular domain name joined your list. So if you, for example, are a smaller organization that you want to reach out to every single person that fills out your content form, you can have this automated. So you'll see, okay, whoa, an interesting lead just came by. We should be reaching out to them right away. You can automate your CRM as well with this. So you can, let's say, report and react to the things that are happening. An additional thing that, for example, we're doing is tracking the keywords that we're ranking on with tools like Ahrefs. So that, for example, we've identified the keywords that we want to rank for, we want to target, and we see every time, for example, every 30 days we have a look, or more often, what the positions we're on, how they have changed. We get emails with information about the latest backlinks that are pointing to our website, to what content is picking up. We see backlinks that have been removed, and we can see why they have been removed as well. Or we could respond to things. So that's another thing they can automate. Content management in general can be to an extent automated. That's something that we probably want to double down on in the future. But I know some teams that already have automated their whole process of identifying topics that they want to produce content on, assigning these topics to specific content writers, for example, based on the niche or cluster the article, let's say, that fits in. So once they've done it, for example, in their Trello board or in Airtable, it creates a task for that content writer and sends them an email whenever they publish an article within your CMS or whatever tool you used to collect those. You get also information so that you review this article. Once you review this article, you also can automatically send it off to the content writer or your, let's say, blog editor who will have to publish it. In one way, that's good, especially if you're publishing tons of articles. I know of teams that publish about 50 articles per month or even more.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. So that's probably not something that we want to go down with, at least in the foreseeable future.
That's something we can't go down with.
Yeah, back in the day, HubSpot was doing this and everyone was trying to copycat that. And we had a time where we were publishing around 30 articles each month. But content isn't just about writing more content, but managing and keeping your content fresh, linking it between each other. So you have to actually keep your, I would say, whole content hygienic. Yeah. And last but not least, content distribution, because content marketing is about distributing as well. I would say the marketing part is about this. So sending out, whenever you have a new blog article, an automatic blog digest, sending your messages to Slack, to your team members, notifying them, hey, here's a new article or on our RSS feed or on our blog, scheduling communication with webinars, with social media via Buffer or CoSchedule. So I would say this is an additional part that you can definitely automate in content marketing.
Thank you so much. Well, it's huge because you've mentioned so many tools. At some point, I wanted to go back to analytics, for example, and ask you about individual tools that you use for analytics, because perhaps people listening would like to maybe start with measuring content. Yeah. I know that it's been a challenge because very often people, well, like a lot of content marketers, they have those writing skills, those they are great storytellers, but still if you were to start measuring the data behind the content. So if you could just go back and then tell us more about the analytical tools that you think that are very useful for content marketers, what would that be?
Sure. So definitely, if I was to establish a website or a blog, I would start with the basics. So Google Analytics and Google Search Console. So you want to see what kind of people enter your website. You can, in Google Analytics, you can dig into data about their age, about their location, what pages they go to, how much they're spending on, how much time they're spending on that, how many pages per session they're going to. And if you establish goals, conversion goals there as well, you can see, for example, how many people clicked on a specific button or filled out your form or downloaded a piece of content. So that definitely can help you establish or analyze which content pieces work best based on the people that have been on your website. And with Google Search Console, you can see the terms that your website is ranking for. For example, that's the main use case for me. So, for example, with SEO tools, you can see some estimations based on what they think, for example, your content is ranking on. But in Google Search Console, you see directly data from Google. So you can see that your article is not ranking only on the main term that you wrote it about. Let's say you have a photography website, photography in London. You're a photographer in London or a business photographer in London. So you can see that there are actually other terms that you should be creating content around. Business photo shoot, or let's say business portfolio in London. Or then you can see that people are looking for some other locations as well. So you might identify additional keywords that you could be writing about, or maybe that you're not using in your content creation process or in your paid ads. So these two definitely would help you, but that is also assuming you already have some traffic on your website. So you have to keep that in mind, that for very small companies that these tools might not bring a lot of value. But even if you have only 200, let's say, sessions on your website, then it can help you identify who you're dealing with and who you're producing content to, and you're reaching with your content. On top of that, I would definitely dig into SEO tools. Ahrefs, for example, it helps you analyze your competitors. You can see what terms they're ranking on. You can see how many backlinks they have, what they're bidding on in their paid campaigns as well. But you can identify also the topics you're ranking on, what they think what your positions are, what the estimated value of that traffic is as well. I like this. Okay, it's kind of a vanity metric. They came up with this. They calculate, the average, let's say, the cost of those ads, of those placements for those keywords, and based on your ranking, they estimate how much it would value. But for us content marketers, that's also something that you want to share with your manager, because it shows you, I know content may be not generating that many signups, but look, that's, let's say, $100,000 each month of value that you would have otherwise had to spend on paid ads to be seen by those people. So, that actually shows you also the value of content. Definitely. And with those tools, you can dig into really research into what topics you should be writing about, what's very popular, but also what's very competitive. And you can use tools like, for example, Surfer SEO to help you create that content in a way that Google will like. So they will suggest, let's say, the structure, the keywords that you should be using, and it can help you streamline your work a bit better, so that you're, let's say, ticking all the boxes when producing content that's supposed to be written also for the robots. So I would say these tools are most important, of course, Google Sheets and Excel for writing down everything that you're producing, and marking down even the date of publication, so you can see which content could potentially be outdated and should be updated before, next Halloween or just next hot season.
True. And you've already kind of touched upon this topic about the value of content. So how do you think a lot of people address content marketing as something given, even though we have a great return of investment usually? So how would you say why we should invest money in content development as well as different tools? Because, for example, some of them, Surfer SEO probably doesn't come for free, if I remember correctly, but Ahrefs also doesn't. There's some free tools for content marketing that are good enough in their free versions. So what is that wow factor that kind of encourages you to pay more, invest more, and dedicate more budget to your content marketing strategy?
I think actually I was sold on content from those tools. So Ahrefs, for example, was one of the probably first channels that I've seen on YouTube, and our previous SEO person actually introduced me to this tool and their channel. They said, like, if you want to learn about SEO, watch all their tutorials about SEO and content marketing. And I've watched all the videos there. I'm like, okay, I'm hooked. I really understand how this works. They showed me not only like the idea of SEO in general, but they showed me exactly how to achieve these things in their tool. So, it attracted me in the first place, and taught me how to do the things that I want to do. So actually helped me succeed, and then showed me how to do it inside of their platform. With Surfer SEO, I think, for example, that's a great tool. They have great webinars. They have great support on Facebook and their group, and it's a cool company in general. But I think we've had a few attempts as well with these kind of tools before. Especially when the SEO person came to the department, they told us, like, I have this tool that will help you write content better, and like we didn't get the let's say the value of it at all. It's like when you typed in the title, it told you, for example, let's write about Halloween campaigns, and it told us you have to use the term gift 5 times or gift guide 7 times. I'm like, well, that's silly. Well, that's not how you write content. And I looked at the terms that like didn't make sense. But with this tool and the approach that we chose, we don't usually start with the SEO tool like this in particular in the first place. We start by writing content, and then when we looked at the content that was written by us and then we plugged it into the tool, we looked at how it compares with other articles or content pieces out there, and helped us look at what we could be missing. Maybe it was visuals, maybe it was just specific terms, and actually for non-native speakers also helpful because it shows you some synonyms. I've been in the market in this industry for over 10 years, so I often know specific terms, but when you go around reading or talking to people, you notice that they actually use they use different terms for, like, I say send a newsletter, someone will say send a broadcast, someone will say send an email blast, and it's like it's the same thing literally. But with those tools, it can help you actually steer that. Okay, you're writing about this, but people that write about this often mention these keywords as well. So when is it time to invest in those things? That's a hard one. I would imagine that you're already working with someone that understands the value of content. If you were to outsource content writing, you probably would be paying a lot anyway for creating that content. So instead of just writing that one content piece by a freelancer, you could cover the cost of those 2 tools, and you would be set for a month. So if you are able to produce several content pieces with those tools, and it will save you time, will help you create better analysis as well ahead of time, you'll see the value in it. And if not, these things, you can pay them by the month and cancel at any time. So it's not a massive risk. And with Google Analytics and Search Console, that's for free. So no need to worry that.
You mentioned like synonyms, and I had this like memory that I was talking to one of the customers, and he never mentioned automation. He always used conditional logic. So, it was quite interesting because he was thinking about, the kind of like how you put elements together. So for me, it was also like eye-opening that, sometimes, okay, we can say like automation, but you're right, that it's like about the context, person. And
that's very interesting because I think I've made this mistake in the past when I was talking about segmentation to people that have not understood segmentation the same way as I do. So I often told them, like, it's simple conditional logic. You just search for specific attributes and then add additional attributes, then say and or etc. Because I had logic in mathematics class in high school, but not everyone had that. And I'm not even that technical. So like if I was talking to technical people, they were like, oh yeah, of course, that's obvious. But if you're talking to non-technical people, they were like, no. Okay, this is filtering. You can provide information that is going to help you filter to fewer people. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Exactly. This is great because automation and segmentation might be expressed as conditional logic as well, which is amazing. So actually, okay, that's so cool. So much information.
Yeah.
But actually, this is great because I already can see, Michał, you've opened doors to like probably a series of episodes.
Yeah, I can see like a content sprint here.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you about your perspective, as a manager of a content team. I thought that, it might be interesting for people who are listening, like the right time to build a content team. Like, when is the right time to do that?
You found a company and you don't have anybody.
Yeah, let's say that you run a business, it's just like you think about growing and scaling, but when is actually the right time to invest in content marketing?
Yeah.
Not in content marketing, but in
content team.
Creating a team behind.
Yeah,
sure.
So ideally, your founders, the founding team would actually have content in their blood already. So they wouldn't just be creating this amazing tool or amazing company out in the shadows, but they would be talking to people. They'd be already presenting at doing keynotes, doing webinars, posting content on LinkedIn. So they would be creating hype and brand awareness on the main channels already. If that's not the case, and you have to be the person that does it, I would say early on as possible, because even if you're a small company and you're in a niche that's not dominated by the big companies, especially, you can find a lot of ways to create content that will attract many eyeballs to your website. Many people will visit your website because you can find specific keywords to write about, but you can do content on the website. You can do content on the offsite as well, right? Mm-hmm. You can write guest posts. You can get backlinks. You can do podcast interviews, go to events. So there are many ways to even attract people, your first users, at the early days. Now, when it is time to hire more people, that's probably depending on the value of your product and how many people you've managed to attract, because there are companies that are able to produce amazing revenue results with just 100 clients because their clients are big corporations that have massive orders. But if you're a SaaS company where your average order value is very small, let's say, and you need to have thousands of users to pay off an additional content team member, then it might be a different story. But I would still say as early on as possible, within your first, I would say 10 to 20 people, especially in a SaaS company, I would hire a content marketer. Although at the beginning, I would say it's best to have this all-around content marketer / SEO / PR person. They would have to wear a lot of hats. But, early on, if you just produce content on your website without the SEO knowledge, then it might not provide the revenue that you want. But you have someone that connects all those skills. They will know exactly which kind of content to produce on your website, which one to produce outside of your website, and how to create buzz as well on social media and other venues.
Cool. I wanted to ask you about, should you build the content team in-house or outsource? But now, obviously, what you've just mentioned means that probably in-house is the way to go, right? Because you need a person who understands the product, understands the company, and actually is also integrating a lot of people within the company very often.
Yeah, I would definitely start with someone in-house. Later on, you can outsource some content creation processes, but I would definitely prefer to have that knowledge and all the connecting the dots inside of your team, because they will be interested in the company and everything that goes behind the scenes the whole time. They will be listening to the customer conversations, the sales calls, to your founders, how they talk about these things, so that they will know how to use it to the advantage. If you have someone from the outside, if you're not unable to pick specific topics for them, how to write, or if you have someone that is just, let's say, paid by the word, they will focus on their goal. And their goal, for example, it might be just to produce a content piece and get paid and not think twice about what we could do beyond that. And that, of course, depends on who you're working with. But I would say there's time for both things. I would definitely prefer to have people on the inside. And then if you have a massive, big scale, big volume of content to be written, produced, then maybe use outside freelancers or agencies to help you. Because, of course, if you have a team, you're involved in many more things, one-to-one meetings, motivating your employees, setting up their careers and everything. So there are many things you don't have to worry about or be, let's say, concerned about if you have a freelancer. You just tell them a topic, you give them a brief, and they will produce a content piece. And especially if there are topics that you don't want to personally write about, then maybe you want to outsource that.
Mm-hmm.
What about agencies that also serve as consulting agencies for content? What's your personal experience with those?
Yeah, we actually had an agency in the past that provided additional services, and we had agencies that came up with those audits.
Mm-hmm.
They talked to our team members about, let's say, areas where they could improve on, where we could improve on our company, etc. And I had positive and negative, let's say, feelings. So in certain areas, we had agencies that just repeated what the team said. So they didn't provide additional value, and they charged us for that.
Lovely.
But then we had people that would definitely say, provide a lot of value based on their own experience, based on the things that they've done in the past, or they've consulted with other companies and that has worked. And that was definitely helpful to have this outside person that is not, stuck with all the processes and projects that you're working on. They would have a different perspective, and they will tell you, okay, I think this could really help you, especially if they have access to your data. Then they could do it as an outsider and provide additional service. So I think, there is a lot of value there. It depends probably on who you're going to reach and if you're able to actually act upon those suggestions. Because sometimes agency can have a great idea, but you know internally that it's going to take a year to develop something because you're not as flexible as, let's say, some other companies or startups.
True. It's a very good point.
Yeah, I'm still processing the amount of information that you've been sharing. This is brilliant. I
also take this one very personally. I'm taking so many good tips on how to work about my content. So thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
I was going to ask you about budget right now. Let's say that you've got this a content team in the company. So what would be your tip? Where do you put the budget? What do you A/B test? How to? I'm thinking about just running this robust content team and actually because we've covered a lot. So where do you put the money?
Where do you invest in content marketing? Well, you definitely have to invest in the content creation process, whether it is a content writer, is a designer, a video producer on your team, video editor. So you have to invest in that part. I would also suggest adding those tools, so SEO tools that will help you create that content better. If you don't have a graphic designer, then you use tools that can help you design better assets. And for content distribution, we're lucky because we don't have to pay additionally for tools like email marketing tool or landing pages or webinars and stuff. But I would also invest in those areas. And when it comes to how much, that's something that's the more the better, obviously. Though it's not entirely true because it's easy to burn through your money, and it is good to be brave with your budget, so you can try new approaches. But if you've never had money, for example, to invest in paid ads, you wouldn't know whether it works for attracting new users to your webinar, whether it is something that you should be doing. And if you do have, then you can also identify problems in the process. So for example, if you invested in Facebook lead ads, you might think it costs us only $4 to get a Facebook lead, and it's awesome. But then you realize none of those people actually reply to your email. They open your email because they just wanted to download a specific item, your ebook. And if you had a double opt-in, for example, confirmation message, you realize that no one or hardly anyone just confirmed that message, because in the Facebook lead ad process, you don't have a space to say like, hey, here's a confirmation message coming your way. So it does make sense to have this budget to explore things. I know many organizations are also investing in link building. So that's one of the shady areas of content marketing that probably I didn't know about several years ago. That it's not that just companies mention each other because they're nice, because they think your content is great. The companies often refer their friends or people that they're working with, or just companies that pay them. Sure. So that's something especially bigger companies are investing in. But I've heard about small companies that also invest that because it helps you boost your domain rating, which is often used as a kind of analysis, quick glimpse if the company is reputable or not. Someone looks like this company has 60 domain rating. Okay, so they must be doing something good. But it turns out, no, they bought a bunch of links from, top websites. But if you ask me, the most important is the content creation and the distribution process. And yeah, I guess that's the part. And of course, hiring the right people that want to stick with you for years, ideally. Right. And they want to learn about your customers, about your needs, and about your offer, so that they can think in many ways how your content makes, how your product helps your customers.
Cool, thanks. I really like the way you've phrased it, that, there are those areas where you should be brave with your budget. Yes. Being brave with the budget. I really like it. So yeah.
It sounds very nice. I was also going to ask you, based on what you've said, because you brought up many times different processes that comprise this content marketing itself, many tools that we can be using. A lot of emphasis was put on analytics, and I love it because I think having this number-oriented approach is fantastic. But how do you measure success in content when it all comes together?
Yeah, so that's probably something hard. And whenever I talk to other companies, whenever I've been, even interviewed, I ask that question myself. Like, how do you measure content in your company?
Yeah, so it's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question, and not just being, nice here. The easiest way to measure content quality is, the traffic and the conversion. So whether it is free trial signups and newsletter signups. But that's, I would say, if you only look at those things, then it would have been very disheartening for the team and for yourself, because obviously you can identify a topic that can produce tons of traffic, attract tons of traffic, but does nothing for your business. Mm-hmm. And honestly, when you look up the most random search terms, for example, in B2C space, you would identify that people are looking for specific products, and these have like hundreds of thousands of search volume. If you're a B2B company, you probably won't have that. So if you only looked at the search volume, you would probably write about content that's not relevant to you. You'd write an article about a specific emoji, or, I remember back in the day, like sites where you can download free images. That was great for us. Yeah. But these days we write about that's actually stuff that's more meaningful to our customers. So I would say these two metrics. At the same time, I would say there's this now tendency, and often people talk about, dark social, or just the areas in general of marketing that you cannot measure. What I love internally to measure, even if it's just, to my own personal box, a folder, is how many people ask about the specific content internally on our Slack channels, how many people contact our customer support team asking whether this content piece is updated or whether they can use it in their own stuff. We had academic researchers asking us, can they use our content as a source for their report, or someone wrote a PhD using our data. So these are the things that make you think like, okay, this is working. This, maybe we didn't see that lead, or we didn't see a free trial from that, but definitely that content piece is meaningful. Right. So that's another way to measure content.
And I think it's very important. I think it's very important not to forget that content is a valuable source of information, first and foremost. It's not a lead generating machine.
Yeah.
And writers want to have fun creating the piece. Readers hopefully have fun reading the piece or interacting with it. And it's very easy to fall into this trap of just doing conversions, when in fact I'm very grateful and excited that you brought it up, that it's about the value we give to people. And if those people decide that the product may not be for them, it doesn't mean that the content wasn't for them.
Yeah, I think these days, especially if you only look at those metrics, signups and downloads, then you might focus on the wrong thing, and it might just keep you from creating content for your existing users as well. Because, of course, you attracted them, you converted them, you no longer have to think about them. Well, that's not true. Your customers want to learn about your product, how to use it best, how they can use all the features there are, how to, find tips and tricks on using those tools, or like maybe they're missing some campaign ideas. And that kind of content, yes, it will probably not convert that many people. It's not something they search for, but if you distribute it well, they will see it and they will find value in it. And your content actually helps you with your product adoption. It helps you educate and keep your customers coming back. They will, they'll be more active, logging back to your tool more often. So you have to look at those things, and our tracking isn't perfect. I'm going to admit that, but I have a huge belief, and this is also comes down to the managers that you work with. You have to be aligned on the fact that not everything is going to be measured, and your content needs to be produced for different stages of your customer life cycle. And it's delight and engaging your existing customers is a big part of it as well.
Yes, definitely.
And also I think that, this kind of content piece that you read the information and okay, this product is not for me. So it's a good piece of content, because then you are not, engaging, or you don't make a mistake of purchasing the wrong tool. And then you are satisfied, because you avoided a serious mistake, right? So yeah.
It's the same as with email marketing. You don't want people that don't want to be on your list. You don't want people sign up to your product and be angry with the communication that they get, and that they have been cheated. That they've wasted their 2 minutes of their life to sign up for something that's not for them, or that's actually doesn't give you any value beyond just the dashboard, because everything else is paid in there, for example. So actually providing good content that will tell them exactly, that will narrow down the research, and whether it steers them away from your brand or to another competitor that's more suitable, that's fine, because you save them time and you help them out. But in the future, they might potentially come back to you, for example, if they're working on a different project or a different company.
You're right about that. So it's not about setting high expectations, but actually aligning expectations with reality, right?
Yeah, about matching customers' expectations in many ways. And making sure that people who you have actually want to be there. And that's very important. And that is the ongoing theme we have with this series, surprisingly on automation as well, is that it all comes down to providing customers with an experience they're going to enjoy. So it's not about selling or converting or getting an email for an ebook, but for matching people's expectations and for making them happy in many ways.
True. I mean, after all, we're reaching people with our content, and these people aren't all that different from us, whether this is a small company or a big company that just has bigger budgets and bigger teams. These are all the same people, and they want to, achieve their goal, whatever that is at this specific moment. So you have to think about their experience, and you don't want to annoy people. You want to delight them. So think if your content is actually delighting them and helping them achieve whatever they're trying to achieve at that moment.
And I'm very excited that this is the direction where we're going as B2B marketing itself, that it's about delight rather than convert.
Yeah, true. Hopefully everyone will be aligned in the next, next year, so in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of different industries are talking about that. I think we're on the right track. We're onto something here as an industry. So hopefully, soon we're going to be talking about how to be best content creators, not just content marketers.
That's true. That's true.
Definitely. Okay.
So you have it. You take the last question.
So there is this question that relates to the whole series. So what's your best tip for slow season?
take advantage of it. Take it as a blessing. Take a step back and actually benefit from the fact that you will have fewer calls, you will have fewer meetings, fewer webinars, or just meetings to attend to. And take a step back and look at what you've been producing, whether it is going in the right direction. Analyze what's been working for you, analyze what's out there on the market that's working for your competitors, and plan ahead of time think about your future campaigns. And if it's something that's happening in the next 2 months, you might already start working on it, because it will take time before that content gets seen, and it will take time to polish it. So take it as a blessing.
Don't forget to check out the show notes for the list of must-have content marketing tools Michał covered in the episode, as well as some helpful links and resources.
If you liked the episode, make sure to rate Operation Automation and leave us a comment wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have a story about content marketing you'd like to share with us, just drop us a line at podcast@getresponse.com.
Operation Automation is backed up by GetResponse, the marketing automation platform that's been on the market for over 20 years. Subscribe for more juicy insights. And remember, automate, don't complicate.